Peace, everyone, and happy Five of Hearts week. We are in the fifth week of the year, and that is represented by the Five of Hearts energy. So, in this video, I'm going to go through the whole life spread of the Five of Hearts and the type of energy that we may have been experiencing since the beginning of this week and as we move through the rest of the week, right? So, let me zoom in a little bit so we can see the plate a little bit better for where the Five of Hearts is sitting. All right. We want to get all the cards that it has. So this is the life spread. This is the main plate where we find all the cards and their life path. So in this video, we're looking at the Five of Hearts since we are in a Five of Hearts week. So where does the Five of Hearts sit on the plate? Well, this is Saturn, right? And here's the Five of Hearts. So it sits Saturn, and then this is Venus. So the Five of Hearts energetic blueprint is Saturn and Venus. And so with that, we know Saturn is about discipline, the long haul, responsibility, putting in the work, accountability. It sometimes has, breaks to it, let's say, because it is about timing. It's not, a quick moving energy. It's all about the long haul, the timing of things, the karma of things, etc. Then you add Venus, where it's more about pleasure and sensuality and, the touchy feel and the romanticizing. And so it's finding that balance through relationships. And because we're looking at a five, there can be some wandering. There can be some restlessness. We know the basic level of fives bring change. And so this can show up as how we feel in our relationships could be changing. We could go from being in one way of relationships to a whole nother way. Fives typically want more. They're seeker type of energy, and they can bring a restlessness. But since we are talking about Saturn as well, yes, it's about pleasure in the moment and feeling, but Saturn is like, is this working? Is this going to produce something? Is there discipline? Is there accountability? Because the low side of the Five of Hearts can be like a ghoster, someone who runs, someone who gets scared, or the feels can be too much. Instead of really dealing with them and addressing them, they'll dip out on them, right? So I like to say this one would catch flights before it catch feelings. But at the same time, it's like you can't run from Saturn. You can't run from the emotional responsibility that is going to be required here. So in this week, knowing it is about the Venetian and the Saturnian energy, it's like, how can we create something solid within our relationships that, also give us freedom? Because essentially that is what the Five of Hearts is going to want. Freedom to roam, freedom to feel, freedom to explore, and that's okay, but don't run, don't disappear. It's like, give that space, but also come back to that Saturn energy of like having to be disciplined, having to be responsible. And again, because the Four of Diamonds is a part of this equation, it's the challenging karma card. Are you clear about what it is that you want, right? Emotionally, in the relationships, for your heart's desires? Like, is it something solid? Because, and so let's look at it. The Five of Hearts supporting karma card is the Five of Clubs. So it is kind of coming from a five energy, right? And maybe being something or someone that doesn't have roots or doesn't tie themselves to anything. There is that essence of freedom. That's that essence of exploring, that wanderer, that seeker, that shift, that being able to pivot. But the path of the Five of Hearts, being the Four of Diamonds as their challenging karma card, is to create and build something solid. And that requires that discipline. You cannot run from it. And you have to get clear, because fives can be a little busy. They got a lot going on. There's a lot of restlessness. I call it like a wash spin cycle with the five. So, and this is of the emotions, the heart, what the heart wants, the desires of the heart. And so to create solid love, to create solid relationships, to create a strong foundation, they have to build that within themselves. And that's kind of where that Saturn energy comes from, like being disciplined, not just being, out in the streets, all, up in arms and having no real focus, having no real plan. So really creating that structure of value, right? And relationships are valuable, right? It's not just the emotions. It's like, what are we building? Are we building something secure? Are we building something stable? Are we building something for the long haul, or is it wishy-washy? Is it something, is it flighty? Is it, something that can just get picked up and taken away and gone? So a lot of wanting to build and getting clear about what it is that you want. Now, the Mercury card for the Five of Hearts is the Three of Clubs. This makes them some of the most creative and brilliant people. The things that the channeling that they can have, the downloads that they can have, the ideas that they can have, the artistic mind that they can have, the writer's card as their Mercury card makes them, one, able to kind of juggle a bunch of things. It also still kind of gives them that kid at heart energy. They already are a heart, so they got the Rico Suave title and that playfulness, creativeness. Add the fact that their Mercury card is one of the most creative cards in the deck next to their Venus card, literally as the artist card. So their first two inner planets are artists, are creative gurus in the sense of, expressing themselves. These can make them great artists, great musicians, great writers, great poets, great, someone that can really, do multiple things. Now, the low side of this, and a lot of us may experience this, is the mind kind of going cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, running off, overthinking, not pulling the trigger on an idea, a plan, because the threes on the low can backpedal and they'll question it, and then they'll sit on a fence, and then they won't make the move, or they'll backpedal the first move that they really should have made and go with a different move, and then realize, oh, I should have listened to myself. So the thing with the threes is like, trust that instinct, trust that creative genius inside. And again, there's abilities to channel, there's abilities for lots of messages to come in, and it's like discerning which are good or which are ones you should move on, which ones that you should act on, right? But also acting on it. Because again, the low side of that three is like pulling back, not making a decision, procrastinating on it, overthinking it, stressing yourself out, a lot of anxiety. So one of the best things you can do this week with this Five of Hearts energy and the Three of Clubs as the Mercury card is find a creative outlet. Find something to do that allows these energies to move. If not, it can make your mind go a little stir crazy. It can make your mind overthink, talk yourself out of some things. So again, use that energy to focus, to create, and following through will also bring a lot of satisfaction. Now, having a Three of Spades as a Venus card can make them, especially if Venus is going to represent relationships, like a variety. I like a little bit of this. I like a little bit of that. The Five of Hearts is going to need some spontaneity, some fun. This isn't boring energy. This is creative energy. This is experimental energy. This is expressive energy. So again, finding a healthy outlet to express their love, whether that's music, whether that's art, whether that's dance, whether that's movement, something has got to get those juices flowing for real. So, and the Three of Spades has such a creative muse to it. So again, they can kind of sit on a fence though. This is why they can sometimes call the Five of Hearts is like a card where, divorce can happen. Because again, it's like, is this exciting me still? Is this fulfilling me still? The low side would be looking outside of yourself, right? And realizing you should be fulfilling yourself from within, not expecting others to make you happy. And then again, if there's not fun, if there's not creativeness, it can cause boredom. It can cause overthinking. It could cause thinking the grass is greener on the other side. But what it really needs to show you is the grass is green where you water it. So if you're not putting any energy into the relationships, then you're looking outside of the ones you have, then it can cause stress, and it can cause indecisiveness, and it can cause worry. Or maybe you're trying to juggle multiple things at one time, and it can be overwhelming. The Three of Spades also can be sensitive to other people's emotions as well. So they have to have discernment. They have to really be able to, if a Five of Hearts shows up into a room where everybody is stressed and worried, they're going to easily take on that energy. And they probably were in a good mood to start. So they have to be very mindful of the company that they keep, because it can create a lot of unnecessary stress and anxiety that wasn't even there. So it's like really protecting your energy as well. So for us collectively in this week, like there can be a variety, or what we want, or we want to experiment. We want to have a little fun. We want to try a little bit of this. We want to try a little bit of that. You look good and you look good too. So which one am I going to choose? And I'm not saying everybody will have that same experience, but those threes can kind of, create those crossroads. Like, I want this, or I want that. So, but trust the first instinct. Now, Their Mars card is the Nine of Hearts. And what I found really interesting in this week, and it kind of blended from probably the Four of Hearts and into the Five of Hearts, but we've had Mars and Pluto conjunct in Aquarius. And it's interesting when you look at the Five of Hearts, they have a 9 in Mars and a 9 in Pluto. And that's so aligning to the planets doing what they're doing. So a 9 in Mars can be a lot of different things, right? We know nines are ruled by Mars naturally. So there's an aggressive energy. There's a go after it, like it's mine, I want it, get out of my way, right? But having a heart in Mars makes you more passionate, more loving, more intense with those feelings. And that emotion could be what's driving the feelings as well. So they have to learn to not be attached. The Nine of Hearts is the card of agape love, universal love, a giver of love. It's what makes the Five of Hearts very generous on the high side. I mean, they'll just give you everything. But they also have to learn boundaries. If they can't give it, it's okay to say no. You don't have to feel guilty, right? Because sometimes that's the low side of that 9 energy. But it also teaches them things come, things go, and how to learn how to, handle that emotionally, because on the low side, this can be, aggressive, abrupt, intense, controlling, a hard time of letting go and allowing the emotions to kind of make your decisions. And that sometimes may not be the best thing. So a 9 of Hearts in Mars, again, the fact that Mars and Pluto come together, there could have been a more intense conversation, an intense connection that showed up, right, for everybody, or maybe even it's still playing out. But it's also about not having any attachments and expectations. It's like really allowing that love to overflow and to really give it from, that higher space. And also this makes them great counselors. They're able to kind of help others, process their emotions and release them and not hold on to them. So yeah, can things get heavy? Of course. But how long are you going to hold that weight? There could be where a lot of people have cried this week. Tears could flow with that 9 of Hearts. It's just, it's a shedding of the skin. It's allowing the emotions to kind of flow without them like drowning you. Now, their Jupiter card is the 7 of Clubs. And so this is the card of spiritual knowledge, but it's also the card of like your inside voice, the mind. And we know Jupiter is going to expand whatever it touches. So if your mind is in a good space and in a good state, the good thoughts flow. They maybe even get bigger. You can see how easily you can manifest. You could speak life, speak things into existence, because the 7 of Clubs is a very powerful card of the power of the tongue, the power of your words, the power of what you say, the power of what you think. But what do we know about sevens? They are faith or they are fear. There's no in between. There's no gray. And remember, Jupiter expands whatever it touches. So if you are on an optimistic space or, in an optimistic state of mind, everything is good, working out in your favor, you're having faith in the process and in the things and what's showing up, or, the opposite is fear. Speaking, not per se like a negative, like the word death, but speaking in pessimistic ways, responding in pessimistic ways, finding the worst case scenario, where the other side is like looking at the best case scenario, right? Remember, there's no middle ground. It's either going to be one or the other. And because, this is a weekly forecast per se, that 7 can easily flip. Like you'll be just fine. And all of a sudden, a negative thought hits, and if you don't stop it, redirect it, alchemize it, it can have you spiral to what I call like the pits of hell of your mind, because it just quickly brings you down. So that's the work. Pay attention this week. Where does your mind go? How do you respond to things? What are you speaking? Do you see opportunity, or do you see, failure? It's really about your mindset. And remember, it can get big because it's Jupiter. So speaking life over yourself, having faith in yourself, believing, being optimistic, seeing the bright side of situations. But again, most importantly, it's like not being attached, putting the seeds out there, and then letting the universe do what it does by matching that energy. Not without like the expectations of when it's going to come, how it's going to come. That's trying to control it, right? Now, their Saturn card is a 5 of diamonds. So they are one of those cards where they are a 5 birth card, and their Saturn is also a 5. So again, it's like when their 5 is in Saturn, it can feel like changes can be uncomfortable. And since this is a diamond, they may have to learn how to be more financially responsible, because in this case money can come in, money can go out, money flows, money, it's like a constant revolving door. But again, remember, Saturn requires discipline, requires responsibility, accountability. And sometimes the fives can be a little irresponsible in that space, because it can be like trying to juggle a lot, trying to, there can be restlessness. Now, having a five of diamonds in Saturn also can be where you're investing in your health, being open to different modalities, different ways. Not just maybe your typical, healthcare, but maybe you do Reiki, maybe you do acupuncture, maybe you get massage, and it's being open to different ways of doing things and seeing the value of that, right? Not just sticking to the plan. This card kind of walks to the beat of their own drum. So it is about trying different things that can bring more value, maybe around work, around discipline. But we also know with the element of Saturn, there's a sense of responsibility. You can't just overboard it. You don't want to create any, financial debt or anything like that. You want to be responsible in your spending and your investing and yourself. How do you take care of yourself? How are you disciplined with yourself? Now, the Uranus card for the Five of Hearts is the Queen of Spades. And the card, and I didn't do this in the beginning, but the card that pushes them, that supports them, another moon energy, is the Queen of Diamonds. So they are supported in that like royal energy of one being very generous, being very nurtured, taken care of, but at the same, and it also gives them that like philanthropic energy and wanting to help others, but it also, it shows that they're supported. There's a royal energy behind them. So like they have to believe that, walk in that, and can be very attractive energy as well. Queen of Spades being the Uranus card, this kind of gives them that natural gift of healing. Again, like really these make some of the most incredible healers, and being, again, open to different modalities, but also on a deeper level, the Queen of Spades is the card of spiritual self-mastery. And it's because she does the work. She has more inner control, more inner mastery. She's realizes that all the answers are within her. She doesn't have to look outside of herself. And then she takes the wisdom and experiences that she's had and learned, and then wants to help others. We also know the queens are the mothers. So there is the Five of Hearts may have a lot of like wanting to nurture, wanting to mother, wanting to take care of, but not at the expense of their own well-being, right? Making sure they have boundaries, because that's where those nines can come in and like they'll overdo it, overgive, overshare, and then they're depleted, and the only person they can really be mad at is themselves, because they didn't have boundaries, they didn't say no. And so having this Queen of Spades as a Uranus card, they can get sudden insight, sudden spiritual awakening, sudden like upgrades to like really seeing the power within themselves, and then wanting to be of service, wanting to help. This is a great card of like the collective, and we're helping in the collective because it is a Uranus card, and it sits Uranus Mercury naturally on this plate. So they do really get those downloads that help with the wisdom, and there's a lot of maturity here because it's spiritual self-mastery. So the more they master themselves, the Five of Hearts, the more they really see that they're driving that ship, they're the captain of their boat. Now their Neptune card is the Jack of Clubs, so they do have that gift of gab. It's a very persuasive energy. It also gives downloads to them, their higher mind, thinking outside the box. Again, kind of walking to the beat of their own drum, and a very creative, like their dreams. When they're in a meditative state, can be very like creative and free flowing. And this also kind of makes them everybody's friend, right? You can talk to them, right? And they can see the different, I feel like they can relate with this energy to others, and really connect with others through communications, through, the higher mind. And the Jack of Clubs wants us to kind of think outside the box. Also gives them a really romantic energy as well, because the Jack of Clubs can talk you into or out of anything. And so the Five of Hearts, having that in Neptune, they can be very persuasive with their words. But they have to be mindful, again, like, the higher mind or the lower mind, because what are the jacks? They're the bridge from what I call the peasant to the royal. So they have to be mindful of what side of that seesaw that they're going to sit on. Now, Pluto is the Nine of Diamonds. And so again, having a 9 in Pluto is not light work. It can be very challenging, and we all collectively are experiencing this week. So there can be where suddenly money has to go out, resources have to leave, investing, and you can lose on some stuff. But whenever there's a 9 in Pluto, Yes, is it cycles of things leaving? Yes, but it also shows it's cycles of things coming. So don't look at what's going, look at what could come, even if you don't know what it is. There's why faith is the reward card to this energy. So a nine of diamonds could have, especially in Pluto, where it triggers us to fear, loss, money, financial downfall. This could also just be like you're purging a closet. You want to give stuff away because you want to make space. You don't use it anymore. It doesn't have value anymore. So why would you want to hold on to it? But again, if there's a lot of fear around not having enough, or, something breaks down and you're like, oh my God, the best thing you can do is be grateful that you have the money to cover it, or whatever the case may be. But also it's teaching you not to be attached, because again, it's cycles of things leaving, typically followed by cycles of something even better coming. How are you going to look at that? You either stay in the tunnel, or you'll see the light at the end of the tunnel. You choose, right? And it doesn't mean it's not disappointing. It's just, how long will you stay with that? How long will you get stuck on this loss, and rather seeing it as a loss? You can change your perception, seven of clubs, how you think about it, how you speak about it, and really see the blessing in it. I always look at the nines and Pluto as like, and we all eventually in our life, whether it's a weekly spread, a 7-week spread, a yearly spread, will have a 9 in Pluto. And I bet you if you look back, you'll go, oh, I remember that was tough because you had to let go of something. Something ended. Something had to be released. Something had to be removed, right? And this can be more closer to the financial aspect, things of value, resources, things that we look to that, we want more, like we are connected to in a more valuable space. So again, try not to get too, it's not fear, it's just being aware of the energy and knowing that we have this collectively, and we can see, things even with like, I think there's talk about the government shutdown again. Well, this could cause fear around money, but the 7 of spades is the reward card. And this is the most powerful card of faith, having faith, believing in the endings are actually the best thing for you, letting go, not being attached, and trusting in the power of your, prayer, meditation, God, spirit, universe, whatever you look to, a higher power, that it's all working in your favor, right? Even the endings are bringing you more faith, more blessings, more spiritual awareness, right? And also one of the best things, and think about it, they have a 7 in Jupiter, and a 7 is a reward card. So when the 5 of hearts is acting and moving from the space of faith and alignment and pure like God energy, they don't worry about things leaving. They don't worry about endings, because they know that's exactly what was supposed to happen. And so the more we kind of embrace that energy, the more we get to open up to the, beauty of the cycles, things, and even when we don't know what's coming next, this is really challenging, is like keeping the faith, having the faith, even when the new or the cycle of new coming in hasn't shown up yet. It's like, and it's that window that people then start to swing, and they get fearful, they get lack, they get scared, they get nervous. And it's like, and then when the stuff shows, you're like, oh, so the more you can get into that space of just having faith that it's all working for you in your favor, the less this energy becomes detrimental to you, right? So, and again, having 7s as reward energy, because Jupiter is considered blessings, and 7, a cosmic reward is a reward. Their reward is in having faith. Their reward is in believing. Their reward is in optimism. But it's also, more importantly, because it's 7, is seeing yourself as the source, seeing yourself as the plug. It kind of goes back to that Queen of Spades and being supported by the Queen. You have everything inside of you. You don't have to look outside of you. There is nothing to fear. There is no lack. The universe is, a vast, an abundant space. It's us that limits us. It's us that has these fears, these reservations that hold us. So really walking in that power that it's all aligning for you in your favor is the best way to move through this energy. Because 5s can bring like that sudden shift, and you're like, oh my God, what's happening? And so it's really key to just stay in the moment, stay in the now, because that's the low side of the 7s, is they get way ahead of themselves, or they go back to things that have already happened, and all of that takes you out of the moment, takes you out of the now. So staying more present is also key, which can be challenging for 5 energy. The cosmic lesson is the 2 of clubs, the only even number in this whole spread as a direct card. They have vertical cards, but I'm not going over all of those, but it is the only even number in their direct life path. and it happens to be their cosmic lesson. So their communications, relationships are lessons for them, right? And again, how they express themselves when things get too close or too intense. Do they run? Do they ghost, or can they talk it out? Can they communicate their needs? Can they communicate that I may need just some space? I'm not trying to run. I'm not trying to ghost. I just may need some space, because that's the thing with the fives. They need freedom. They don't want to be boxed in. They don't want to be chained down. But if you can't express that, if you can't share that, and you just expect others to be okay with the disappearing acts, then it can cause some hostile conversation and some hostile connections, because you're not informing. You know what I mean? You're not communicating those needs. And so that's a key for them, is how they communicate, how they express themselves, how do they cooperate, how do they listen, right? Is a lesson. Relationships and their connections are a lesson for this Five of Hearts. And creating more solid connections come through communications, using your words, expressing your needs, and not running, because the low side of twos can be control and fear, codependency, and moving from those spaces. So the more that the Five of Hearts like really works on just communicating with the people closest to them, the better the relationships become. And then their cosmic moon is the King of Clubs. So both of their moon energies are royal cards, right? So that strong maturity, being able to express your emotions without a lot of like icky feels that can happen with the cosmic moon, especially if it's a heart. But since it's the King of Clubs, again, like really expressing their needs, expressing their desires. This could also come from like a very strong, like mother energy in their life, like that, especially with having a queen pushing them, like really supported in that well, the more they're nurtured, the more that they're taken care of, the more that they're, supported in that, the more that they're emotionally more solid, they're emotionally more mature, they're emotionally more able to communicate and express. The low side of this would be to not be open, to not listen, to be condescending. That's some of the low vibrations of the King of Clubs. But this also makes them, more logical, more able to think it out and not really get too caught up and, even almost detach in some ways. And then they transform into the Jack of Diamonds. So they do have a very strong persuasiveness about them, great at sales, obviously convincing, pursuing, and also being very innovative, thinking outside the box, very attractive. But remember, if you transform into a Jack, there's an initiation that's happening. It wants you to level up. It doesn't want you to be peasant energy. You are here to be royalty. Look what pushes them, a queen. And then they transform into a Jack of Diamonds. So they kind of do have that ability to kind of go from like that peasant to that royal. The low side of the Jacks would be, again, running from responsibility, cutting corners, not being honest, right? But the high side of this is creating more value. Again, being more innovative, more, really seeing that the money is just the byproduct of when you do something you love. You don't have to be greedy. You don't have to force. You don't have to connive. You don't have to manipulate. It's when your heart's in it. You don't have commission breath. That's what I call the Jack of Diamonds. It can have commission breath. So when the Five of Hearts sees their value, and when their heart's in things, they can be magnets to opportunity, magnet to, expansion, increase, initiations. And I also believe they can be healers, because again, they can, once they work within themselves and they, deal with those emotional waves, they can then help others kind of bridge to that higher level as well. So collectively for this week, again, ride the wave of the emotions. It can be up, it can be down. It can be up, it can be down. And as long as you stay in the moment, you stay in the now, you have faith, you speak life, you don't get too ahead, you don't go back, you let go of what no longer serves you, and you even have faith in that ending, everything you'll see is exactly as it's supposed to be. So it can get a little bumpy. I do not lie about this stuff. It can be a ride. Try not to run from it. Try not to ghost it. Try not to disappear. Again, you may need space, and that's okay, but communicate that, express it. I think that's the key for this energy. Don't just run and expect people to be accommodating to that. Like when you just have to express it, like, hey, I need a day, I need an hour, I need 5 minutes, whatever it may be. That's okay. And however the other person takes it is not on you. You shared it, you communicated it, and now you get to do what you need to do to kind of get back to that heart space, that center. So enjoy this Five of Hearts week. It is a very fun, playful, creative energy. I tend to, be a little bit more biased to the 5 because I have a 5 that supports me and on the life spread, and I can thrive in this energy a little bit more than most, because 5s bring change. They can make you uncomfortable, and this is in the realms of your emotions and your heart, which can get really icky. So again, find those creative outlets, let go when you need to, have faith, and don't resist, being able to pivot and make those adaptations if necessary. I hope it's a dope week, and I'll talk to y'all next time for the 6 of Hearts week. Peace.